everybody, it's Dina at the Realize Foundation, and today I am here with Clara, and we're going to have a conversation, of course, about overcoming adversity and what adversity she has experienced in her life and how she has overcome it and how she can help you have hope in a similar situation. So, welcome, Clara.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're doing. I think that, all of us face struggles and face those challenging times. And, it's easy to lock ourselves back and say, oh, I'm all alone. And so with you being able to pull us back and have us realize that we're more connected, it's such an honor to be here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to have you. It's always fun to meet new people. And I know we met through someone else who's been on our show. And so thank you, Colleen, for introducing us.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? What do you do in the world? Where do you live in the world?
Yes, I would love it. So, I am a professional speaker and also TV show host, just like you. I speak on high performance. So, I work with a lot of leadership, sales teams, other organizations to teach them how to work at a higher level of productivity without burning themselves out. And I also love to highlight the fight through adversity, and my show is called Women Winning Their Way. So I just talk with professional women about how we can kick down the door of traditional standards and expectations and forge forward on a path to success on our terms.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I have to learn more about that.
Definitely.
I think it's so important to, I don't know, just all the work I've done in the world for the last 4 years has been how do we become better versions of ourselves through taking better care of ourselves, because a lot of us business people work 24/7 and push ourselves for years and years and years, and then one day wake up and say, wait a minute, what happened to my life, and why am I neglecting my family and friends because I'm working all the time? So how do we?
Well, and because again, that's the message. The message is hustle culture, and you can have it all if you just work harder. And that's really what I try to teach people is, to get the clarity around the fact that you don't have to hustle to get more. It's about bringing the harmony together of the hustle and the flow, and that's really how we achieve more.
It's true. It's very true. But I want to dive into some of your adversity and what you would like to start with, and see, so people can relate to maybe something you've been through and how you dealt with it.
Definitely. Well, my story is really in line with what you were just saying about all of us just pushing ourselves to the limit with sacrificing a lot of ourselves, our relationships, and ultimately driving ourselves into burnout. And that was really my awakening moment is I did the same thing. I grew up with this vision that success meant you got to check off all the boxes. And the more boxes you have checked off, the more titles you have, all of those things, that's really, the answer. And so I did that and I went through all of those, and I had my moment where, I had to sit down and get honest with myself because I had it all. I had the fancy job. I had the money in the bank account, the luxury car, the house on the golf course, and also realizing that with that, I brought on anxiety and depression. Um, spawned my eating disorder that I had from, a teenagehood. I was on my second divorce, and it really all kind of culminated with it was my son, who was almost 4 at the time, really hitting me over the head with the reality by taking my phone out of my hand and looking at me and saying, Mommy, you're not paying attention to me. And I had to really come clean with myself and have my own moment of clarity and realize that chase was actually getting me further away from the life that I wanted to create and the person that I wanted to become. And I think that so many, not just women, I think so many of us fight through that. And that's where I had to learn how to dial things back, not to give up my quest, because I love to work. I love what I do. I find pride in everything I do, and I'm able to impact lives. And I do not have to do that while sacrificing my health, my relationships, and all those things along the way.
Yeah, it's just so true. And I think it's the people who are closest to us, like your son, are like there to support us, but they also are pretty good at telling us when we're not showing up the
Mhm.
way we need to, aren't they?
Exactly. And there were so many other red flags, and I think that that's, when we're going through these, we think we're alone. We think nobody else is going to understand. And I know that I sure went through that. I had these moments where I was just drowning in the day to day. And especially after my son was born, I received an amazing promotion. It was really my dream job at the time. However, it required that I went back to work 3 weeks after he was born. So those
Mhm.
ideals of taking the 3 to 4 months off just didn't happen. And I really developed postpartum depression. However, I wouldn't allow myself to acknowledge that because in my mind, that was weakness.
Mhm.
Asking for help was weakness. If I let people see behind the curtain, they would think that they had made a mistake putting me in a leadership position, that the people that I was leading would think I was less than capable. So I kept it all inside because, what do we see when we look at social media, when we look at all the houses in the other cul-de-sacs and neighborhoods around us? Everybody's got it all together. Oh my God, that mom, she has 4 kids. She has a clean house. She has a perfect husband. When the reality is, she's drowning just like I was. But none of
Mhm.
us see that. And we're so afraid to let people see the truth because we think it's going to make us look worse than we are. When what I had to realize was that by pulling back that curtain actually was strength. And when I started sharing my story and when I started saying, I need some help, so many other people came out and said, "Oh my God, me too." And I
Mhm.
realized I wasn't alone. And that's when I could really start moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to talk more about that, but I want to ask you a question about where do you think your drivenness came from?
Mhm.
And was it maybe from someone in your life growing up, or why did you push yourself so hard, and why did you think that it was necessary?
Yes. Well, I definitely come from a family of very high overachievers. And I want to, give a caveat to that saying they never specifically pushed me. They would always say, do whatever you want to do, become the best at whoever you can become. However, I did have these high standards. I also was the youngest of four. So for me, my oldest sister knew she wanted to be an artist. That was always her drive. My brother was always kind of like the party guy. Everybody loves him. And, sales was sort of his role. My other sister was the sweet one and the cheerleader and the pretty one. So for me, academics was going to be my area. That's where I was going to fit in. So for me, I was sort of like that little, I saw myself anyway as that little runt puppy that was trying to get its way into the herd. And so that's where it was. I had my first job 5 years old, getting the lemonade stand going. I would remember going and asking my parents, can I help you at work? And just going in there when I was 16, can I go and get my first job? I was the girl that did the AP classes, did the extracurricular activities. It just sort of was innate. And I think a lot of it was to get the recognition, to get the love that I thought was being withheld, which it wasn't. But that's the message that I had. And so I really drove myself because for me, that was how I was going to get recognition, love, to show my worthiness, and to really make my mark in the world.
Mhm.
Completely
Yeah,
unhealthy. I can see this now. But
well, we have a lot in common. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs and was always told I could do anything I wanted. And, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so I kept trying to find things that I thought I wanted to do. And I would never give up on it, even if I knew it wasn't the right thing.
yeah,
So, it was a lot of years of putting all of my energy into things that didn't pan out to be what I really liked, but I wasn't
yeah.
gonna quit. So,
Oh my
I gotta
gosh. so true. Oh my gosh, I did the same thing, and it was sort of, again, that quest. And in all honesty, I always felt something was wrong with me because I'm like, why
Mhm.
can't I just figure it out? Everybody else has a clear path. They know they want to be an artist. They know they want to be a doctor, or it's like everybody knew. I changed my major 7 times in my first year and a half in college and ended up graduating, with 2 degrees because I was always searching for what was it rather than just listening
Mhm.
internally. And so I agree 100% with what you're saying. And, I'm always like, people don't understand me. And I remember even maybe within the last 2 years having a conversation with the company that I work with.
Mhm.
And they're like, you are you happy? Because you always seem to be striving for more. And I said, I'm thrilled. I love what I do. And yes, I want more. And they're like, oh, you're just an entrepreneur then. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah, I hear you. I had my first business at 14, and I always joke it's because I wanted this expensive pair of jeans that my parents wouldn't buy for me. So I
Mhm.
started, my dad helped me start a business at 14, and it was, my business for summers during high school, and it was a snow cone stand or snowball stand in Louisiana, and my mom had a nursery school, so it was right outside the nursery school. So I was always busy. And
Yeah.
so I was like, my dad said, well, he helped me build it and set it up. And he said, if you need something, you better order it. And if you don't want to work, you better train somebody. And that was like my first, you know, directions for owning a
Mhm.
business. But yeah, it's, I'm a number 7 now, and I spent 15 years in corporate hospitality. So I've done a lot of things that have gotten me to where I am. And I think I'm finally in my 50s figuring out what my purpose is on this earth after
Yep.
so many years and decades of thinking I had found what my purpose was. So it's a journey, right? It's never
It is.
like it's never black and white on the wall in front of you. It's just a journey finding
It is.
what
It is.
is
And I
where
think,
you're
we
supposed
have
to
to,
be.
yeah, we have to embrace that openness that, it can be scary, and embrace that journey, because that is when, again, doing things like what you're doing and opening up these conversations, because we do feel so alone. And many times we are afraid to ask for help because we think that, again, people are going to think, well, then we can't do it, when we just have to remember. And I always think too, where I sit now, I never want to lose sight of where I came from, so that if I see somebody else struggling, I want to bring them along and be like, I was there too, and this is what I did. Because I don't want people to feel alone. And I think, especially as an entrepreneur, it can be a very lonely island to live on, and it doesn't need to be. We don't have to have a scarcity mindset. We don't have to be afraid that, say, if we're in the same circle, of saying, oh, I don't want to talk to them because they're going to steal my secrets. No one's going to steal your secrets. And there's enough for all of us. So let's start tearing the walls down, and let's start working together and sharing the strength together. There's enough for all of us out there.
That is true, very true. And it's also, like you and I could have the same exact message that we teach, but we do it in our own way that's
Mhm.
authentically us. And it
Yeah.
makes it different, and it makes people drawn to different people because of what they are looking for, their personality or their beliefs or whatever that is. But I want to ask you, I know you mentioned the moment with your son when he took your phone,
Mhm.
but was there something else in your life that happened that was more of a wake-up call from pushing yourself so hard all the time? And how did you
Well,
come to that
yeah.
realization?
There were so many. I think that moment with my son was the biggest one because, this was the one person. I was a single mom at the time. And so everything I was doing was trying to be a good mom. And I think that was really the one where I'm like, I'm failing. I'm doing all of this, telling myself I'm doing this for him, and I'm
Mhm.
failing. But some of the other warning signs that came up, I remember in my late 20s driving to work and actually thinking how lovely it would be to get into an accident, not one that would kill me or cripple me, but one that would put me in the hospital for maybe a couple of days, so that I could just get some rest and people would leave me alone. So that should have been one. I remember, my mom calling me because as a single mom working full time, I was also going and getting my master's degree. And my mom calling me being like, we're a little worried about you. And she honestly suggested, maybe you need to take some things off your plate. Like maybe you should give your dog away because that's just one other responsibility that maybe you don't need. And I laid into her. How dare you think that I can't even take care of my dog? And I mean, I was mean to her. And I remember my father calling me back, being like, I don't really care that you're in your 40s. You will never talk to your mother that way. And, so again, just realizing that I was kind of losing it and, really just short tempered, short fuse, and gaining weight, not taking care of myself, not having time, um, to be there for friends. And again, divorce, choosing the promotion and doing those. And even though I think we were two very different entities anyway, and we really couldn't have been our best versions, the drive to check off the boxes definitely led to part of the divorce for sure.
Understood. I think it's very hard. You think about well, first of all, your story about the accident. I remember being in my office one day with some of my employees and talking about the fact that, people who are in jail have it pretty good because they get 3 meals handed to them. They get to sleep whenever they want. They get to read books all day if they want. Like,
Yep.
maybe that's just what we
Oh
need
yeah.
to do. But I mean, I know that sounds crazy to some people, but
But no, it is. Yeah.
when you're in a place like we're talking about where you don't have 1 minute to yourself for
Mhm.
anything, and it's appealing to be somewhere where someone's going to take care of you and feed you and you could sleep.
Mhm.
But I
Exactly.
think also, if we go back to, decades ago or 50 years ago, when, women didn't work as much, and, the world was very different then. But now that women do work and own businesses and are executives, we still have all the same responsibilities of being a
Mhm.
mom and being the, you know, a lot of times you have to get home and cook dinner, or you have to make sure people have food whether you're there or not. And so it's the combination, I think, of all of those things we are responsible for,
Very
that
much.
we're still in 2024 trying to figure out how to juggle all of that and still take care of ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, you can see behind me. This is my latest book. It came out in July and it's called The Mother of All Success Manuals. And it was my story and it's my book and it's a guidebook for working moms because I do think we carry so much guilt and shame. We love to work and at the same time we always feel we have to justify it with a statement before or after but I love my family. And why should we have to do that? We should be able to again blend it together. And no discount to any man out there, any fathers, husbands. There's some great dads and husbands out there.
Mhm.
Society, it still falls on mom. They still call mom first. And I think to some of our detriment, we as working moms feel that we have to give more because again we're trying to justify when sometimes we need to be like, you know what, yeah, you can cook dinner tonight, I'm cool with that.
It's true. There's a lot of pressure, and I think there's a lot of pressure on men too, in different
There
ways.
is. Yeah.
Especially when they have a business and work so much, they still feel the pressure to be there for their family, but
Mhm.
it's just different. It's different for women, I think, in many ways, and I think it's um, I don't know. The world is just a crazy place.
And we're all just trying to figure it out and we're all looking for the answer when the reality is my path and journey is going to be different than yours. So
Mm,
in some way we can look to others for guidance, and we also have to remember we have to do it on our own. There's not
mhm,
going to be anybody else's story that is going to be exactly like ours. And so there
Mhm.
is no magic answer. And we're all just doing the best we can. And we are all failing at the same time. And we just have to give ourselves a little bit of grace along the way.
I agree with that 100%. And I
Mhm.
think that the biggest thing that, the mission of the Realize Foundation is to reduce suicide rates. But we believe that human connection through conversations and community and personal stories is how we can save lives.
Mhm.
Because, I don't know what you know about my story, but I spent 23 years hiding a suicide attempt because I thought it wasn't okay to talk about it.
Wow.
And I didn't get help. I mean, I was in my late 20s when that happened, and I didn't talk about it until I was 50 to anybody.
Wow.
And I think that, there's a lot of stigma around mental health still, although it is getting better, it's still there. And it's having a place or a person that you can talk to about anything. Like if
Yeah.
you're feeling depressed, who is it in your life that you can have a conversation with about that? And I always say, you can call me. I will talk to you
Mhm.
because I'm that passionate about this subject. And I think that we're never going to feel enough and feel like we matter and feel like, whatever it is that we're dealing with is worthy of a conversation until we have another person that is willing to talk to us about it. And that's really what everything we do is about. It's the conversations on the podcast, the community in our Facebook group, the books and the stories that people can read in their own privacy and say, hey,
Mhm.
I can relate to this person. And now I feel like I have somebody I could reach out to and talk to about this. And that's the
Yeah.
whole purpose, is that, if you don't feel like it's safe to say anything, how are we ever going to heal from it or get better?
It's so
Holding
true.
it holding it in here does not help.
No, and you really hit the word of, again, safe. We need to create safe spaces. And I think, for especially women in business in, the 70s and 80s, there were so few seats at the table that I think it was more cutthroat. We couldn't create that safe space because we were all fighting. We don't need to fight anymore. We can hold space for each other, and we should be inviting other women to the table, and again, being able to create that safe space to be able to talk and to share in a productive and collaborative way.
Yes. Very true. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about what you do now and how you got there, how you became a speaker. What is your driving force behind speaking? I would love to understand that a little more.
Well, I think going back when I was a kid, I knew this was what I wanted to do. I just didn't know it was what I wanted to do. I always, from a very young age, I knew my purpose was impact. I could see me on the stage, but it wasn't as an actor, performer. It wasn't in that. I just knew there was something inside me that said, I am built for something big. I am built for something that is going to impact the world. You
Mhm.
tell somebody that at 5, they think you're crazy. And again, everybody's like, oh, you'll be an actor, actress. And that wasn't what I wanted to do. So, unfortunately, I listened to all those naysayers and I said, you're right, it's probably a crazy pipe dream. So, I went on my way and I actually fell into the realm of real estate. And that's really where my career began. And I had a very successful career, worked on a very large, high powered team, got into leadership. And it was in 2004 that I went through my first coaching certification. And I think that's when I really saw everything lining up, saw how I was going to deliver impact. This is how I was
Mhm.
going to do it. I was going to be able to teach others how to step up into their own light. So I was sort of the girl behind the others, teaching them how to let their light shine. And then from there, I started training, started speaking more, and I had to overcome a fear of public speaking because I knew this was going to be what I needed to do. However, my worthiness issues held me back. So I started working with my mentor and tapping into the value that I knew I could deliver. And when I started tapping into that value, I was unstoppable. And I was like, get me on as many stages. And that's where I come to life. And people who see me, people who know me, when I am on stage, that is where I'm living my truth. And again, it's not because the spotlight is on me, it's because I am able to take that spotlight and shine it on everybody else so that they leave there feeling energized, inspired, and with real strategies to
Mhm.
live that high performance life on their terms with the clarity they need, all without having to burn themselves out and again sacrifice themselves the way that
Mhm.
I did. I know that my story can touch others. I know that the simple truths and the simple strategies that I put into place for myself can work for everyone. And I have an obligation to share those because it's the ripple effect. I am sitting here now. My son is now 19. I have the most amazing relationship, even being on the road 35 weeks out of the year, because I have learned the secrets on how to leverage my time, how to block distractions so I can be present, how to understand what it is I need to do, what it is I need to not do. And I want other people to have those 10 plus relationships with their kids, with their significant others, with their clients. And I know it is possible. Like you, I run
Yeah.
about 4 different businesses right now. And I do that because of what I learned in finding my own clarity. And so my goal is to share that with others so they can live their best life and create their best businesses and their best careers too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, it's been so great chatting with you.
Too.
I want to tell people where they can find you. And
Yes.
so we have a website for Clara. I'm going to put it up on the screen so you can reach out to her or read more about her or figure out how you want, if you want to work with her or ask her to speak somewhere, maybe. Who knows?
Absolutely. And like you, I offer a safe space. Everybody has the ability, my whole thing is about creating clarity for people in life and business. So I just invite anybody if they like something they heard, they can reach
Mhm.
out and they can book a free clarity call with me. It's not about selling them anything. Again, it's about helping them. And if
Mhm.
there's a fit, great, there's a fit. But like you, I just want to create a safe space where we can start the conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Do you have any last words you want to say or
Again,
questions?
I just honor you so much for creating these messages, with your books, with your platform. Again, teaching people that we don't need to be afraid to share our stories and that there is strength in our struggles.